Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 11th of March, now it's 12:30, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my channel in which I share latest updates on the news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There is quite a few very significant developments and news that I'd like to share with you for this moment. But before I start, let me repeat myself and say that if you think this channel is interesting, useful and deserves to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal or subscribe to my Patreon page. You will see links under this video in the description box. When it comes to Patreon, I will make a little announce about tomorrow's update for Patreon subscribers, and first of all I will note that sadly my family members got flu and we cannot go to Moscow. I was planning to make some videos from Moscow for Patreon update, but we will do it for next weekend, for next update. Tomorrow I will answer to some of your questions and I will devote some time to talk in details about situation that is developing in Georgia, and maybe I will also talk about conflict between Georgia and Russia in 2008, and I will share with you my knowledge and my opinion on these topics. I hope you will find that update, tomorrow's update, interesting. So that's been said, let's talk about news now, and I will start with the Ukraine and special military operation, of course. And first news that I like to share with you is that according to Russia Today, advanced groups of Wagner PMC were able to cross the Bakhmutka river and began moving towards a city center of Bakhmut, Artyomovsk. That's two names that this city has. We have some more specifics here. According to RT, between the marketplace, the bus station, and the building of Artyomovsk School number 5, there is a company stronghold of the armed forces of Ukraine with a system of passages under the houses and ammunition depot, and that place was targeted by advancing PMC Wagner units. So let me show you on the map this area. If you notice, I did share yesterday in yesterday's update information that forward units of PMC Wagner did enter from the north side, did enter steel plant in Bakhmut, steel processing plant in Bakhmut, and late afternoon some media outlets including RT did report that some PMC Wagner units cross this river, Bakhmutka river here, and start moving forward in direction of city center. So formally we can probably say now that fight for central parts of the Bakhmut has begun. I was talking about for entire week now that Russian side probably are not closing this gap between Bakhmut and Chisov Yar, because my guess was that Moscow may be waiting for Kiev to be asked about humanitarian corridor, so that Bakhmut garrison will be able to flee city without weapons, but still flee city safely. And day before yesterday and yesterday I was mentioning that time is running out for Zelensky's regime. At the time, of course, I did not know that Russian side crossed Bakhmutka river. We learned about it late afternoon, but for me it was obvious that time was, time is running out for Zelensky's regime, and now probably we can say with some certainty that that's the case, really, because we also learned today, this morning, that and this was reported not just on Russian language Telegram channels, but by Ukrainian Telegram channels also, that forward units of PMC Wagner establish full control, direct control over the last road that was remaining only under Russian artillery control from Bakhmut to Chisovyar. This road goes through Khramovo here, this little settlement, and if this information is correct, and as I said, this was reported not just by Russian Telegram channels, but also on by Ukrainian Telegram channels. If this is the case, then basically Bakhmut garnison is fully encircled now, because they just cannot flee town. Yes, there's some gap here, but this is fields, man, and there's no way any equipment, any military equipment will be able to cross these fields in conditions when even roads have become muddy rivers. There's no way you're gonna cross fields here, only by foot, and then still Russian side has full control, visual control over these areas, and it's not gonna be safe passage. When it comes to overall situation, you can see here that Russian side is moving, trying to establish new positions in direction of Grigorievka. But main point now is, of course, Bogdanovka, and I assume in next few days we will learn that PMC Wagner units at least establish partial control over the Bogdanovka. And I want to touch on the subject that I did discuss yesterday. As you remember, head of PMC Wagner, Prigozhin, once again made statement about some difficulties with supply of ammunition and the rest of it. And I was thinking to myself, what is going on really? And in my opinion, we may witnessed some deception company from Prigozhin, because as you can see, PMC Wagner units are very active, and maybe Prigozhin and the PMC Wagner units did try once again to use Bakhmut as a trap and basically invite Ukrainian forces to enter this area here so that they will be destroyed. Because if Ukrainian forces will believe that PMC Wagner has some issues with the ammunition, that may encourage Ukrainian forces to do some counteroffensive. But to be honest, I'm not sure this deception campaign will work, because it's just too risky for Ukrainian forces to do some counteroffensive in direction of Bakhmut and widen this gap here between Bakhmut and Chisovyar. But yet again, that's just my guess. That's my reading of this picture, because let me share with you this information. For example, RIA Novosti is reporting that Ukrainian armed forces are concentrating large groupings of forces in direction of Bakhmut. We are constantly seeing this kind of information for previous 2-3 days, and there are many talks about possible counteroffensive from Ukrainian armed forces, and I did share information about this. I will just repeat that some reports are saying that Zelensky's regime will try to attack from Slavyansk direction, that's one direction, from Kramatorsk direction, from Chisovyar, and from Konstantinovka here. But I was very skeptical from the beginning about possibility of Ukrainian counteroffensive, especially from Kramatorsk, Slavyansk direction, because this is the last defense line that Zelensky's regime has in this area here. last more or less capable defense line, and this defense line is weakest one from all the other defense lines that Kiev regime was preparing since 2014. So I just don't see why Kiev will withdraw forces from this line to conduct some offensive operation in direction of Bakhmut. Basically, probably what is happening, Russian side, Russian military intelligence units that are probably scouting these areas, they are seeing some movement of Ukrainian forces in direction of Konstantinovka here and Chisov Yar. But this is probably, yet again, this is my guess, but this is probably because Zelensky's regime is trying to establish new defense line in Chisov Yar and the surrounding areas to at least hold on for some time to this place and slow down Russian offensive, because it's obvious that you cannot build effective defense line in 1 or 2 days or even few weeks. It's just technically impossible. So that's what is happening, in my opinion. Basically, Ukrainian side moving some units in the direction of Konstantinovka Chisov Yar to somehow establish some kind of defense line and a little bit slow down Russian forces once Bakhmut will become under full Russian control. But yet again, this will take some time, of course. This will take some time because according to different sources, in Bakhmut now are trapped from 5 to, reports are about number of Ukrainian forces here are very different. Some are saying it's 3 to 5,000 soldiers. Some are saying that Ukrainian side has up to 20,000 soldiers in Bakhmut. I find it very hard to believe that in this small city, and I tell you that before conflict in Bakhmut population was around 70,000. So it's not too big city. It's just a strategically important city. That's why so much attention is given to this town. So I just found it hard to believe that 20,000 soldiers are trapped in this city. But from 3 to 5,000, probably yes, I can believe this. Maybe 8,000, maybe. But yet again, on Telegram channels, there are many videos that shows in what conditions those troops are in Bakhmut. You can see on the faces of soldiers desperation. They are mentally broken, many of them, because they know they are entrapped, and probably no one or majority of Ukrainian soldiers are not lost hope that they will receive order to retreat. So the situation is difficult, and you can see it on the faces of the soldiers on the videos from Ukrainian side. So I don't think they will be able to I don't think Ukrainian forces in Bakhmut are truly battle ready and capable of withstand Russian offensive. But anyway, even if it's 3 to 5,000 soldiers, PMC Wagner units will need at least a week or two to deal with this forces, isn't it? And then Chisov Yar will fail very quickly, in my opinion. Chisov Yar will fail in a week's time, maybe even less, because I just don't believe that Ukrainian forces will be able to build here any capable defense line. So enough talk about this area. Let me share with you overall situation in front line. As you can see, in southern parts, it's artillery duel. Once again, that's usual stuff here. We did had information from Russian media this morning that Russian artillery fire were destroyed some grouping of Ukrainian forces in Kherson region. We did see information that some 10 military vehicles were destroyed by Russian artillery, and Ukrainian side had some casualties, up to 30 casualties, KIA and wounded. On the rest of the front line here, as you can see, it's everywhere almost artillery duels. Only difference is Ugledar. Only difference is Ugledar here, little by little, but Russian side is trying to move forward, at least in this area. This is Dachi area, cottage village basically, and this is even this pro-Ukrainian map is acknowledging that this cottage village, in Russian we call it Dachi. It's so this area is contested at least, but as I understand, majority of this settlement, this little village is under, most of this village is under Russian control. When it comes to Donetsk direction, Marinka is hot point once again, and it will continue this way for a long time, as I understand. And of course, Ugledar, Avdiivka direction, sorry. So later on, when Russian Defense Ministry will make update about previous 24 hours, we will probably learn that there were some close range fighting between the sides, and Ukrainian armed forces losing in Donetsk direction alone 200-300 soldiers on daily basis. So fighting here is very intensive, and also Seversk, Krasny Liman, Yampol direction. Here we have artillery duels between the sides, and close range fight between sides in this gray zone in and around Belogorovka. Belogorovka still contested. We did had some time ago reports that Belogorovka under full Russian control, but it seems like it's still contested. All this area, entire this area is still contested. So that's a general overview of the situation on the front line. These blue dots, as you know, is air raid alert. So this morning, entire Ukraine was under air raid alert again, but I didn't see any news about Russian large-scale missile strikes, and probably probably there will be no large-scale missile strike. And this air raid alerts usually means that MiG-31 jet fighters take off from Belarus or from Russian territories that are bordering Ukraine. Okay, let's continue now. This is RIA Novosti is reporting here that Kiev is deploying mobilized reservists in direction of Kreminna. As you know, Ukrainian side had some very heavy casualties in Svatovo, Kreminna direction. Previous days was catastrophic for Ukrainian forces in that direction. And now we have reports. This is a military expert from LPR, Lugansk People's Republic, Andrei Marochko, is reporting that Kiev has begun to send newly mobilized reservists in direction of Kreminna, reservists that not even had any training whatsoever. They was just mobilized a few days ago and they were sent straight away to the front line. That gives you, if this is true, and I don't really have reasons to don't believe statement that Marochko makes, but still, let's take it with a pinch of salt. But this information, but if it's true, it does shows you desperation of Ukrainian armed forces when it comes to manpower. They truly have some issues with the manpower, especially qualified manpower, because it's one thing to catch people on the street and straight away send to a battlefield, and very different stuff is to organize battle-ready units. Battle-ready units to be created, it takes months and months and months of training, isn't it? So that's why Ukrainian side, in my opinion, Ukrainian army as a whole, on a brink of breaking point. And it's only a matter of months or two maybe, and I believe we will see beginning of collapse of Ukrainian armed forces, maybe even earlier than that. But let's see how it will develop. This is still RIA Novosti, and that's I want to share with you this information because Congressman from Massachusetts, Seth Moulton, stated, this is Democrat, from Democrat Party. So he said that U.S. has no interest to defeat Russia in a large scale, because U.S. don't really want to see some chaotic development in Russia. And first of all, he is talking about possibility of nuclear proliferation. Russia is a major nuclear power, and he's trying to use this topic, nuclear weapons, to say that U.S. not really wants a large-scale defeat of Russia. Little defeat will be enough. I mean, this is of course you cannot comment too seriously on this kind of stuff, but yet again, man, he's from Democratic Party. That party is a ruling party now, isn't it? At least they have president in White House. But as you can see, it was only a month or two ago when everyone in the West, almost everyone in the West, were talking how they're going to defeat Russia and destroy Russia. And nowadays we are hearing more and more statements where same people or people with the same attitude are now saying that, we don't really want defeat Russia, or we don't want to large scale of defeat of Russia, because they are starting to realize how crazy the statements are seen by more and more people, because people are waking up little by little, of course, but still. And that's why this US congressman is making this kind of statements, and he is not only one. Western elites are beginning to realize that they lost this conflict with Russia. They simply lost this conflict with Russia. They can prolong this conflict, of course. They can send more weapons. They can send more taxpayers' money. And they can try to fight against Russia until last Ukrainian. That's what they almost openly are saying. But they already lost this fight, and they know it. Let's continue now. This is RBK News Agency, and just look at it, man. We have information about statements that Macron made, President of France. So he said that for France and the UK, main reason why they are continuing to supporting Ukraine, or one of the main goals in near future, is to help Zelensky's regime with the counteroffensive. And they are hoping that this counteroffensive will take place and will be successful. Yet again, it will take some time. It will take some time. Even this kind of very stupid individuals that Macron is, and Sunak, for example. Even they will openly start talking about necessity of peace talks, necessity of ceasefire and negotiations, because it's obvious, man, they are losing. They lost. They are already lost. And these talks about Ukrainian counteroffensive, come on, man, let's be real. Let's be real. What Ukrainian counteroffensive? Where? I did talk about this. Yes, they are openly saying that they won't cut off this land bridge from Crimea to mainland Russia. But as I said many times before, only chance that Zelensky's regime will ever establish control over this land bridge here, over this area from Energodar and Zaporozhye nuclear power plant to Melitopol, Berdyansk and Mariupol. Only way Zelensky's regime can establish control on these areas if Moscow will draw Russian forces from here. And I hope this will not happen. I hope this will not happen, because Russian side will take this kind of action as a serious defeat. And this kind of development may cause some destabilization inside Russia. That's why I hope Russian side will never give such orders to Russian forces in this area. And if that's the case, then Zelensky's regime has no chance, not even 1%, to defeat Russian forces here. So what counteroffensive Macron is talking about? They are just trying to inflict on Russia as much damage and pain as they can. And once they realize that they've done everything they could, and this time is closing quite rapidly, then same Macron, same Sunak, and same Biden, maybe if he's still in White House, will start talking about necessity of peace negotiations, because there will be no Ukrainian counteroffensive. There will be no Ukrainian counteroffensive, large-scale counteroffensive, and there will be no victories for Zelensky's regime. That's just impossible. They may try, but it will be, one more opportunity for Russian side to destroy large numbers of Ukrainian armed forces. Let's continue now. And we have TASS News Agency. Let me check time. It's 28 minutes. Okay, few more news. And so this is TASS News Agency, which is reporting that Kiev and Oslo did start negotiations about training that Norway will provide for Ukrainian pilots. Once again, I did said many times before that it's only a matter of time, and we will probably see Western-made jet fighters on the front line in the skies of Ukraine. But these jet fighters will be operated by NATO pilots, and these Western-made jet fighters will be maintained by NATO maintenance crews. And the Russian side, and they will operate from Poland, from NATO member countries, not from Ukraine. Not from Ukraine. I did talk about these topics in more detail, like many times before, and I will not repeat myself now, but yesterday, as you remember, Russian representatives in UN did openly said that if West will send fighter jets to Ukraine, Western-made fighter jets to Ukraine, Russia will consider it as an open involvement of NATO in this conflict. That's a very serious statement, and I believe once these Western jets will be introduced to battlefield, and this will happen when, not under the umbrella of NATO, but this will happen when Poland will succeed forming anti-Russian coalition with some NATO member states. So they will act under the umbrella of this newly formed anti-Russian coalition. There will be Baltic states there, Poland, maybe Slovakia and Romania also, maybe a few more NATO member states. And they will act under the umbrella of these organizations, and Moscow are saying openly now that we will take these kind of actions as open involvement in conflict. So this is, Moscow is basically giving warnings to West that there will be retaliation in this case. And I did predict this kind of development, and at least for now it seems like we are heading in this direction, and in 3 to 6 months time we will probably see direct conflict between Russian forces and military forces of some NATO member states that will enter this conflict. Russia will retaliate only when those NATO members will openly become involved in conflict in Ukraine. And everyone should understand that fifth article will not work in that case, because that article works when you've been attacked. But if you attack and then you receive some retaliation, that's a very different story. That's why fifth article will not defend Poland or Baltic states or Slovakia. I hope Romania will not get involved in this anti-Russian movement, but yet again, let's see how it will develop. When it comes to Norway, Norway has around 30 F-16 jet fighters, if I remember correctly, so they can provide some F-16s. Not to Zelensky. Formally, they may say that we are giving it to Zelensky's regime, but in reality, they will be pilots from Norway that will die in those F-16s, and they will be maintenance crews of Norway that will die when Russian side will hit airfields in Poland or in Baltic states or in Romania, from where these F-16s will take off. So it is what it is, man. Let's continue now. This is still TASS News Agency, which is reporting that Norway will transfer to Ukraine two NASAMS air defense systems. So as you can see, one day we may learn that these puppet states like Norway and the rest of them will have no weapons to defend themselves, because it looks like they are sending everything they have to Ukraine. It's crazy, but okay, these NASAMS not gonna change nothing really. Russia will take them out maybe on the first day that they will be introduced to the battlefield, but Norwegian government probably lacks some understanding and education, and that's why they are acting like stupid, crazy idiots. That's what they are really. So let's continue now. This is Kommersant, and sometimes I do receive. Let me explain myself. For it will take only a minute. Sometimes I do receive questions that I am too critical towards Western elites, and I am not criticizing Russian elites. First of all, this is not true, and many of you who are subscribed to my channel, who are in our community long enough, very well knows that I can be very critical towards Russian elites, and I was very critical when topic is relevant. Then but we should make some differences, because after all, Russian elites, love them or hate them, but Russian elites are local scale problem, local scale issue. When it comes to Western elites, when it comes to these globalist animals, they are danger to human civilization. So probably I hope everyone sees this vast difference between these two, isn't it? These ones, Russian elites, are some local scale issue that can easily dealt with, but these Western elites, so-called elites, these globalist criminals, they are danger to entire human society, to entire world, to planet, for God's sake. So come on, man, we cannot compare these two. It's just different leagues, isn't it? So let's always remember this. When of course I am anti-globalist and against Western elites, because they are danger to me personally, to my relatives, to my family. They are danger to everyone. So how can we have some other position in this matter? No, man. It's just and no matter where are you living, in the Western states, in the Eastern states, Northern or Southern states, it just don't really matter, because they are danger to human civilization as a whole. That's it. And we should understand, man, we are one side and those globalist animals are other side. They are our enemies. That's my take on it anyway. So let's continue now. Let's continue. This is Kommersant. And this is Kommersant newspaper, which is reporting that once again, as you probably noticed time to time, topic of mobilization in Russia is becoming relevant. Then like few weeks will pass and everyone will forget about it, and then yet again new wave of this activization of this topic. And yesterday afternoon was that kind of day. On some Telegram channels, in Russian language Telegram channels, information were circulating that Russia will start another wave of mobilization. And today we have a statement from Russian Defense Ministry, which is saying that there are no plans to conduct new wave of partial mobilization or general mobilization. So information that was circulating in some Telegram channels is false information, wrong information. And this is maybe true. Maybe right now and in next week or two, Russian side is not planning to conduct mobilization. But I do believe it's quite possible that in next 2-3 months we will see one more wave of mobilization, and maybe 300,000 to 500,000 reservists will be mobilized. Maybe, but yet again, who knows, man? That's just my understanding, my reading of picture. Because if Russia is planning to do some decisive offensive operation, let's say in the autumn or in the winter time, then at least mobilization probably will take place at least 6 months before this offensive begins, because mobilized reservists will need proper training to become combat ready. So 6 months training, 6 months training is probably enough. So that's why I think before end of spring we may see mobilization, maybe in first 2 months of summertime. But maybe not. I don't know, man. I don't know what plans Russian general staff and political leadership of Russia has. So right now, at least, we have statement from Defense Ministry that they are not planning any mobilizations at this moment. Let's continue now. We have RBK News Agency's report here about this RAND think tank, which has published yet another study, and according to this study, there are some few directions that Russia, USA, and China can cooperate. In particular, in the Afghanistan, on the Middle East, in the Middle East region, even in Europe, and we also have here information that according to RAND experts, with current situation, it's becoming more and more difficult for USA and West in general, that's how I read it, to somehow divide or disturb relationships between Russia and China, because these two countries are basically forced to become more and more entangled in many different ways. And RAND don't see RAND experts and many other think tanks in the West are seeing this as a great danger to domination of the Western elites. But yet again, that's what West did, isn't it? West basically forcing Russia and China to become to build up better cooperation between each other and to become some strategic partners. Let's say how it really is. Even if Beijing and Moscow are not really happy about it, what other choice they truly have? None. And that's because of aggressive Western policies that are forcing countries to distance themselves from the West and try to establish some new level of relationships between each other. So that's why I'm saying, I said many times before, and I repeat that despite the Western attempts to isolate Russia, it's the West that becoming isolated from rest of the world, not Russia. And this is a simple truth, really. Yes, Western elites have some influence here and there, and they are pushing hard all the countries to act as they've been ordered by Western elites. But still, man, even countries that are under full control of the West, even they are forced to distance themselves from the West, because West becoming danger for everybody. Let's continue, and just look at this, man. Just a continuation of topic that I just talked about it. This is RIA Novosti, and we have here a report that the US has developed mechanism, developed plan how to sanction China for support of Russia. So, yet again, this kind of stuff. What this kind of stuff does, man? This, more sanctions will be on Russia and more sanctions will be on China. These countries will be forced to cooperate even more between each other and with some other countries in the world that are not happy about actions of Western elites. And to be honest, I don't really believe that West has any chances to deal with China, man. Chinese economy is too big. Western elites failed to do anything really with Russia, with Russian economy, despite 12,000 sanctions, man. Can you imagine 12,000 sanctions? I just recently see countries that are under sanctions, and against Russia, West did introduce some 12,000 sanctions, if I'm not mistaken. So even if with Russia's economy, West was unable to do pretty much anything, what they gonna do with Chinese economy, man? Chinese economy is the second economy in the world. And USA and Europe, for example, are dependent on China much more that China are dependent on Europe and USA, because European states and USA are importing from China. It's not China that imports from Europe and US. Of course, they do import some stuff, but China has a huge deficit when it comes to trade with Europe and USA. So what they gonna do? I mean, how are you gonna take seriously these threats that they will do this and they will do that to China? They can do nothing really, just nothing. Let's continue now. Let's continue and come on. How long is this? Come on, man. 46 minutes. Okay, I will go through just headlines. Okay, just I will read headlines quickly. And so we have statement from Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, and he comment on developments in Georgia, and he said that everything that is happening in Tbilisi quite a resemblance to what we see in Kiev in 2014 when this so-called Maidan took place, and I fully agree with Lavrov in this case, because I was also talking about, I did also talk about some similarities between the scenarios that were activate in Kiev in 2013-14 and in Georgia now. I did predict that we will probably see in Georgia some members of, for example, so-called Georgian Legion unit that fights next to neo-Nazis in Ukraine. And that did happen. And we had yesterday information that 2 members of this Georgian Legion were arrested by Georgian police. So US not just use Washington not just use the assets in this so-called opposition and non-governmental organizations, but they also send mercenaries, transfer mercenaries from Ukraine. And 2 of them were already arrested. We may see some more arrests in coming days. But yet again, I did said many times before that if Washington is determined to go all the way and make and provoke regime change and then establish new extremely Russophobic and anti-Russian government to use Georgia as a second front against Russia, then probably US will succeed with this, because Georgia is under direct US control for over 2 decades now. So they have the assets everywhere, not just in non-governmental sector, not just in so-called opposition, but also in ruling party. I'm absolutely sure about it. In the government of Georgia, absolutely sure about it. In the Georgian military, and when I say Georgian military, secret service and police, I mean high-ranking officers there. So US can, yes, US, sadly, US has every means to conduct successful regime change in Georgia and use this and sacrifice Georgia basically, and use this country as against Russia as a second front. I hope, what else is left? Only hope. I hope that somehow Georgia will avoid this kind of development, but reality is quite harsh, man. U.S. controls almost everything in Georgia, and U.S. can use Georgia as they want and as they wish. Sadly, Georgian society has no say in these matters because because they did support people, they support NGOs, they support so-called politicians that are not working for society. They are working for their Western masters, and that was the case. That is the case for last 2 or 3 decades, man. Basically, since the collapse of Soviet Union, really, especially since the Shevardnadze became president of Georgia. So let's continue now. Oh yes, that's quite a big deal. Silicon Valley Bank has had bankrupt in USA, and this kind of large financial institution last time get bankrupt in 2008 when 2008 financial crisis was taking place. So something is happening in US economy. If this kind of big financial institution is crashing, then this is not good sign for US economy whatsoever. So let's go through some other news quickly, and of course this is huge news, man. This is TASS News reporting that yesterday Chinese diplomacy had a huge victory, historic victory. Is it the right word? Because China managed to bring to the table Iran and Saudi Arabia, and these two countries that are arch enemies, or they were arch enemies in the Middle East. These two countries signed some agreements between each other. They did talk first of all, then they signed some agreements that they will establish diplomatic relationships. They didn't sign. It's a wrong. Let me say again. So China managed to bring to the table Saudi Arabia and Iran, and they had talk, and they had achieved. They have achieved. During the negotiations, they had achieved соглашение, как это, блин? Agreement, yes, for God's sake, man. When you try to do something quicker, then it will, it's just it just takes even more time, man. So this is huge deal, this is huge deal. That's what I want to say, man. They did agree to establish diplomatic relationships. They will exchange ambassadors and open embassies and rest of it. And this is huge because for China, Saudi Arabia is one of the major partners when it comes to oil supplies, and Iran also, one of the main partners in this region. And China has a strategic interest in peace in Middle East. Because if anything happens between Saudi Arabia and Iran, Persian Gulf will be shut down for shipping, and that will be devastating blow for China, because then only source of oil, only big enough source of oil they will have left is Russia. And if something happened in Russia, let's say, for example, regime change or something like that, and if Russia will take other stand, if Russia will become pro-Western and or something like that, then China is in deep trouble. So that's why Chinese are now working in both directions. They want stability in Middle East, and they want stability in Russia. That's their strategic interest, and that's why they did devote time to this topic to bring to table Iran and Saudi Arabia, and they were successful. And I applaud this because, come on, man, no one wants to see yet another conflict in Middle East, isn't it? So let's continue. Yes, probably you learned about this yesterday, that Turkey have been forced by US and EU to establish to stop transit of goods to Russia through Turkish territory that are under sanctions of EU and USA. If this is true, then and this report based on Bloomberg's article, and if this is true, and if Turkey from 1st March is not allowing goods to be transferred to Russia through Turkey, sanctioned goods, then Moscow will be forced to retaliate, because this is yes, I do understand that Turkey is under heavy pressure from West, but still this is unfriendly step from Turkey, and Moscow will retaliate for sure, and we will learn about it in coming days. Just let's see. And yes, come on, how long? It's already hour, man. So this is come on, what is next? So RF, this is Radio Sputnik. Russia become a top 5 trade partner with India, and that happened first time since 1990s. And numbers, man, are quite impressive. Trade partnership between Russia and India is increasing in huge steps. And this is great, really. This is great. I have no time to go in details, but great news. And once again, that shows that West is failing in attempt to isolate Russia. Man. Who are you gonna isolate? West is becoming more isolated, not Russia. So, and yes, when it comes to this news, man, that West did force Turkey to establish some barriers, for a transit of goods to Russia. I did read this morning information that Washington is heavily pushing Georgian government now to establish all the sanctions that West did against Russia. So if Georgian government will do so, then Georgian society can forget about economical growth in coming years, because in 2022 Georgian economy mainly grew because of economical relationships with Russia. But yet again, this kind of development shows you that US elites don't give a damn about ordinary people, because Turkey is in economical crisis, but still they are forced to damage their own economy by not allowing transit of goods to Russia, and the US now forcing Georgia to do the same. Come on, man. And even more, they are forcing Georgia to establish all the sanctions that West impose on Russia, which will be devastating for Georgia. I can say right now. So one more news. This is Kommersant News agency that Canada introduced a full stop for imports of Russian aluminium and steel, which is, when it comes to numbers, in 2021, Canada only buy from Russia aluminum and steel or details from these metals only for 230 million. Not a big deal really, but yet again, this kind of decision will hurt who? Ordinary Canadians, isn't it? Because eventually Canadian companies will be forced to buy exactly the same stuff, maybe even Russian one, from third parties, and eventually price will be, of course, much different that it was when Canada was directly buying stuff from Russia. And this is also interesting news, and this is gonna be last news for this update. Sorry guys, this update is too long. I just hope that news you will find this news and this update interesting. And we have a report from RT here, according to which yuan, Chinese currency, yuan, has become one of the main trade currencies for Russia. So yuan share soars in Russian foreign trade. That's a Russian central bank has made this kind of statement, and there are some numbers here. Chinese currency share in Russia's import settlements has jumped to 23% by end of the last year from only 4% in January 2022. So from January to December, look at this, how much it increased usage of Chinese currency. When it comes to export, the yuan's share in export settlements also surged from 0.5 to 16%. Just huge increase. And look at this. I want to share with you these numbers. So meanwhile, the shares of the US dollar and euro in Russian foreign trade has dropped substantially. At the start of 2022, 87% of export settlements were carried out in these currencies, while as of January 2023, the share of share had slumped to 48%. So from 87%, this number has dropped to 48% usage of dollars and euros by Russia. So and the share of the share of the dollar and the euro in import settlements also dropped, failing from 65% in January 2022 to 46% in December. So as you can see, Russia is moving away from the dollar and euro, and this is a big deal, really, because Russia is one of the major economies in the world, and Russian steps are followed by other countries too. And if this trend continues, and it will, I'm quite sure about it, eventually most of the trade in the world will be carried out in not in dollars as it usually was, or in euros, but in other currencies. Chinese yuan, maybe Russian ruble, maybe Brazilian currency, currencies of Middle Eastern states, for example, currency of dirham of United Arab Emirates are very popular in international trade. So if this trend continues, and it will, I'm quite sure, eventually we will see spectacular fail of the dollar as a main reserve currency in this world. And once this happens, it will be absolute devastation for it will cause absolute devastation for US economy. Everyone knows this, and probably we are now in a mode when the world is just waiting when this will happen. It's not the matter of if, because everyone knows it will happen, but it's matter of when. And world is waiting. And this was caused by Western elites. This was caused by US elites. So US citizens should be very angry about elites that they have that are damaging interests of the US citizens. They should work for US citizens, but in reality they are damaging interest of US citizens and just ignoring them. So this is it, man. This is it for today's update. Once again, I apologize for this long video, for a video to be too long. But what can I do, man? What can I do? You know. Okay. Probably not that many people will watch before the end anyway. So it not really matters now. It's hour and 5 minutes or hour and 30 minutes. Very few of you probably watch entirely. But anyway, this is it for now. I hope you will find news interesting. I hope you will find this update interesting. And if so, please, if you watch to the end this video, please hit that like button. Leave some commentary about any topic you like. And if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on Telegram, Twitter, Facebook, or any other internet platform that you are active on. Also, if you can and if you want to, you can support my channel with small donations through PayPal or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You will see links under this video in the description box. And yes, this is it for now. I wish you a great weekend. Have a nice time and take care. See you soon.